Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Let's get started. So, before we begin with today's new material, let's do a quick recap of what we learned last time. Um, Last class, we talked about how genes have different versions, and these different versions of a gene is called allele. So here we have one chromosome, and then we have another chromosome. Um, we have two sets because we are diploid organisms. And at one location, you might have a gene for A, for a particular trait. Okay, we'll call it gene A, and both of the gene might be the same allele. So in this case, we say the person is homozygous or pure for gene A. On another location, they might have a small b here and a big B on the other chromosome. And in this case, for gene B, the person is heterozygous or hybrid. Okay. And whether one is homozygous or not has nothing to do with the other one, right? It's all independent event, and it depends on which allele you inherit from your parents. We also talk about the dominant and recessive relationship. So let's take freckles, for example. Capital F would be freckles. And then for little f will be no freckles. And so if someone is big F, or big F, small f, um, because the freckle gene is dominant over no freckles, both of these instances will result in the person having freckles. And to answer your question, Michael, in order for someone to have the no freckle phenotype, the only possible genetic makeup would be homozygous or pure, and this would be no freckles. Okay, so that's basically the core information that you need to recall from last class before we start on today's lesson. Okay, so let's do example one. These are just from the PowerPoint slides. I just put them over here so I can write over it and post it online for you. If a red flower is dominant over white flower for a certain type of orchid, write the genotype for the following flowers. So we have the first one, which is homozygous red flower. And so in this particular question, I did not give you um, the letters to represent each of the trait. In these cases, you have to come up with your own alphabet. So usually it's a good idea to use the dominant trait um, a letter to represent the allele. So in this case, red is dominant over white, which means we should use capital R for red and small r for white. Okay, please remember when you are doing these kind of questions, you should use the same alphabet for the dominant and the recessive trait. The only difference is the dominant is uppercase and then the recessive trait is lowercase. Okay, do not do like R for red and W for white. Right? This is a very common mistake people make when they're trying to solve these problems. Okay, so use the same letter. It might not seem like a big deal, but it actually is. Okay, like when you try to solve more complicated questions, and then you have too many alphabets, you end up confusing yourself. All right. So let's try to come up with a genotype for homozygous red flower. Okay. Anybody want to give that a try? What would homozygous red flower be? That's right. It would be capital R, big R, big R. Okay, homozygous means the same, and red has to have the uppercase R allele. What about homozygous white flower? Homozygous white flower. That's correct. This time it would be little r, little r. Okay. Heterozygous red flower. Heterozygous means different, and for it to be a red flower, you need to have at least one capital R, and so it's going to be big R, small. Okay. And what about D? Heterozygous white flower. That's right. This is not possible. Not possible. Okay. If it's heterozygous, then it would have been red. If it's white, then it would have been small r, which is pure. Okay. So what's important to get out of this question is that for a recessive trait, the genotype has to be homozygous. Okay. So if I tell you a red flower is crossed with a white flower, then you can't really finish the question because you don't know whether the red is homozygous or heterozygous, right? But if I say a hybrid red is crossed with a white, I like the next question here. Right, we have a hybrid red crossed with a white. Even though I didn't tell you whether the white is hybrid or pure, you should already know it is pure. Since white is the recessive trait, automatically it's going to be pure. Okay. So here, it's the same kind of orchid. Hybrid red is big R, small r. Cross means to breed with a plant that produces white flowers. So that would be little r, little r. Okay, so remember, Mendel has a law. He has two laws. Okay, and one of the laws states it's called the law of segregation. So even though there are two alleles in the flower, when it produces gamete, the two R's would separate. So half the gamete would get the big R, the other half will get the small r. Okay? So then we use that information to do the Punnett square, and it will look something like this. So it doesn't matter you put it at the top or on the side. You just have to decide on your own which goes where. So for this particular plant, the hybrid red, we're gonna have big R, small r. Okay, I'm just gonna put the hybrid red here. You don't have to when you're actually solving the question. I'm just writing it here for you to see when you are going through the notes. And then over here, we're gonna have the white flower, which is pure by default. So R and R, small r, small r. Then we're gonna complete the Punnett square. You take the big R here and you pick the small r there, and you end up having big R, small r. Similarly, you're gonna have another big R, small r here, and then small r at the bottom. Does anybody have any question about how to create the Punnett square and how to fill it in? Okay, so the question asks us to predict the phenotype and genotype. So let's start with a genotype. Genotype would be 50% big R, small r. 2 out of 4, that's 50%. Another 50%, small r, small r. In terms of phenotype, big R, small r is red, and then little r, that's white. So sometimes the percentage for genotype and phenotype are the same, but not always the case. It depends on the question, really. So that's how you do it, okay? All right, why don't you guys try the next one? I'll give you, 4 minutes. Uh, Send me a private message when you have the answer, and then I can tell you if you're right or not. Okay, and we're gonna take it up in 4 minutes. Remember to send me your answer if you have them. I want to know if you guys can do it, okay? Because we're gonna do more complicated stuff real soon. All right, that was 4 minutes. Let's take a look here. We have the pure red. So pure red is big R, big R. Okay. And over here, white flower is small r, small r. Does everybody understand this first part here? If you don't, please ask. Okay, tell me what you don't understand, and I'll try to explain to you. Because on a test or quiz question, right? Everything else depends on getting this right. If this first step is wrong, your Punnett score is going to be wrong, your ratio is going to be wrong, right? So it's very important that you understand how to write these genotype. Any questions? Okay, so then we will do the Punnett square. Okay, I'll have the red here and the white here. Again, it doesn't matter. You can switch them and you will still get the same answer. So for red is big R, big R. For white is small r, small r. And when you do the Punnett square, you will see that they are all big R, small r, right? So then that's going to be 100% big R, small r, which means it's 100% red. Okay? So remember, if both parents are pure for um, two different two different traits of the same character, all F1 will have the dominant phenotype. Okay. Michael, just hold that thought. We actually will do XY probably next week. Okay. Did I do the mouse thing with you guys last time? Uh, you know, everything is kind of blend together. Let me just go back and check. 19. Um, this was you guys, right? 202. Yeah, okay. All right. So let's do an example here to let's see. All right, so I have two parent mice here. Okay. Let's draw another one of these guys. Okay, and one of them is going to have a gray coat. The other one is white. And then you cross them together. Okay. So uh, they're gonna have babies together. They're gonna produce I think it's called a litter, just like the cats. Okay. And there you go. Let me see if I can do this. There we go. A whole bunch of them. Oh, that one's like deformed it. All right. Something like that. Okay. Oof. Okay. So this is parent. This is F1. Assuming they are pure to begin with, and that would be information that I need to tell you. Okay, so the character we are looking at would be the coat color. And then the trait is the different version of that character, right? So we have white coat and gray coat. And then they have babies, and all the mice, baby mice, have the gray coat. So which one is dominant based on this result? Is white dominant or is gray dominant? Let's vote. We haven't done a poll for a long time. Based on this result, is it white that's dominant or is it gray that's dominant? There is, of course, the not sure button if you want. F1 means the first generation. Okay, like their kids basically. Okay, I only have five answers. Are the other okay, for six now, thank you. Are the rest of you like, do you not understand or you don't see the poll? Well, anyways, if you can, please let me know that you understand. All right. So that's not too bad. All right? Everybody who participated said the gray one is the dominant one, right? And that's what this means. Okay. If both parents are pure, and then you breed them, that will actually allow you to figure out what allele is dominant. So in this case, since the gray is dominant, so this would be like big G, and this would be small g. And all of these baby mice would be big G, small g, right? Okay. Moving on. Next, we're gonna have to talk about uh, family tree. Okay, so family tree has a fancy name. It's called pedigree. Pedigree. Okay, family tree. Family tree. Just to help you understand how to read this thing, square is male, circle is female, diamond is unknown. Right? So like if a mother is carrying a baby and then they don't know whether it's a boy or girl yet, and you want to represent that on a pedigree, you use diamond. This means to have kids together. Have kids together. Have a child together, okay? Or more than one. Okay. Roman numerals tells you the generation, and then Arabic numbers, that would be the individual of that generation. So this person is 1-1. This one is 1-2. And that one, what is the reference for this man? 3-5, that's right. Okay. So you have to know, because on the test, I'll be like, find the genotype of 2-4. Then you have to know who I'm referring to, right? 2-4 is this one. Okay. If it's shade in, then that means the person expresses the trait of interest. Okay. Whatever trait you are studying in the family tree, if the person has it, then we shade them. It could be like, who has blue eyes? Everybody has blue eyes, we get shaded. It could be a disease we're trying to track, right? Who has sickle cell anemia? Everybody who does will get shaded. Okay. There are more pedigree symbols out there, but these are the basics one that you need to solve my questions. Okay. Like, you have twins like that. Okay. But just in case you see it online and you're wondering what it means, right? Just know that there are more that we didn't cover. Okay. So in a family tree, one of the things I will ask you to figure out is to determine the inheritance pattern of the trait in the tree. And to keep it simple for you, there will only be two options. Is it autosomal dominant or is it autosomal recessive? You already understand the difference between dominant and recessive. If a trait is dominant, then it always showed up. If a trait is recessive, it will only show if you have two copies of it. Okay. Autosomal means chromosome 1 to 22. So these traits that we are looking at are transmitted on chromosome 1 to 22, one of them. Okay. It could be on chromosome 5, could be on chromosome 7. It doesn't matter. Okay. If it's on X or Y, then it's called sex-linked. And we will learn sex-linked conditions next week. We won't have time today. So some things are only transmitted through the X or the Y. If it's transmitted through the Y, then only men can get it. If it's transmitted on the X, then both gender can get it. Okay. So to keep it simple, there are only two choices. You either like the family tree I show you, the pedigree I show you, it's either autosomal dominant or autosomal recessive, right? So how do you tell? Let's try to figure it out together. At first, you don't really know. Okay, so you just take your best guess. Right? You're like, okay, let's see what happens if this is dominant. Okay, we will use big A and small a for the allele. Okay, obviously, big A is dominant and small a is recessive, right? So if this is a dominant inheritance pattern, what can you say about the genotype of this guy? He has the trait, okay? And if this is dominant, what can you say about his genotype? That's very
Wait,
good,
sir,
right?
are we saying that the trait we're looking for is dominant, or the ones that aren't looking for are dominant?
Uh,
Yeah, I
Come
just
again, one more time.
I just got confused on what you're asking. Is what we're looking for dominant, or is what we're not looking for dominant?
We're trying to say that this is dominant, and if it is dominant, what kind of genotype would this person be?
Oh, okay. So if it was dominant, it would be uppercase A, or uppercase A, lowercase a, right?
That's right. And Cheyenne, you said the same
Okay.
thing, which is very good. All right, so at least there will be one big A, right? Okay. The other one we don't know. The other one could be big A or it could be small a. We don't know. Okay. You can use R if you want. It doesn't really matter. Okay, but listen carefully. If one of the alleles is big A, that means the big A must have came from his father or his mother, right? And so, the mother must have a big A. But we know she does not have a big A because if she did, she would have been shaded in as well. She would have the same trait because it's a dominant trait, right? Similarly, if the big A came from the father would have been shaded in, right? But he's not. That's how we know this cannot be a dominant trait. Do you guys understand that? Okay. So this cannot be dominant because the big A would have came from 1, 1 or 1, 2, which means at least one of them would also have the trait. Okay. So I'm gonna draw it out here for you. If you see this, if you see a couple who do not have the trait, but at least one of their children has it, okay? So if both parents do not have the trait, but at least at least one of their children has it, then it is then it is not dominant, right? I told you. But since we only have two choices, it's either dominant or recessive, then we can say it is recessive. Okay. For example, uh, I have black hair, okay, as you can see. Uh, my wife also has black hair, but one of my daughters has brown hair. Okay, it's so brown that people think she dyed her hair. Okay, uh, so is that a dominant trait or is that a recessive trait? That's a recessive trait because both parents do not have the brown hair. I don't have brown hair. My wife don't have brown hair, but then the kid does. One of the kid does, right? And so the brown hair must be a recessive trait. Okay, so I probably have like a recessive brown hair allele in me, and as does my wife, right? And so when you do the Punnett square, there's this 25% chance. Do you guys understand? I know I keep on asking you every class. Okay, I do have a question for you guys though. I forgot to ask this earlier. How many kids do they have? How many kids do they have? Yeah, three kids, right? So if you follow the line here, one kid, two kid, and three kid, right? Let me just see your question again. What would happen if two dominant meet? What do you mean by that? Can you elaborate a little bit so I don't answer you
Well,
incorrectly?
like let's say for example, like, I don't know if it's actually true, but like let's say brown hair
Uh-huh.
and let's say blonde hair. I'm not saying like blonde is, I don't know if it's not, but like let's say both are dominant, then
Okay.
what would happen if they combine? Like what would it look like?
Oh, you asking me like two if two different traits are both dominant? Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying? Like blonde and
yeah.
brown are both dominant? Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
that
So like
is a
what would
great
it be?
question. Yeah. So I'm just oversimplifying things here. Obviously, there are different kinds of hair color out there and eye colors as well. So the correct answer is it actually is not determined by two alleles. Okay, I'm just simplifying it and say big B, small b. Okay, hair color, eye color, it's actually determined by multiple alleles. And whenever you have multiple alleles, um, there are different effects when you mix them together. So generally speaking, darker hair color is dominant over a lighter color. So if you have brunette and blonde together, the brunette is actually brunette being the brown, right? I suppose it's gonna be a dominant over the blonde. Okay, so like there's like almost like a an order of dominance in terms of what gene cover what gene. Okay, so like you might have, this gene covering the second gene, but then the second gene will trump over another gene, so on and so forth. Does that answer your question? Yeah. So remember, right? Like we are just doing very basic things here. In reality, genetic interactions are very, very complicated. It often have multiple genes uh, in many different instances. Okay, so now that we know it is not dominant for the reason I've explained to you, and this is recessive, then that means individual 2, 3 must be small a. Okay, so how is it possible that he has small a when neither of the parents have the same trait? Well, there are only one explanation for this. The parents must be hybrid. Okay? So if you do the Punnett square, there's actually 25% chance they will have a child that has the recessive trait. Okay. So what about this daughter? This is the sibling of number 2, 3, right? What can we conclude about this individual? Well, she does not have the trait. That means she must have one capital A. But what is the other one? Well, the other one could be another big A or it could be a small a. So we don't know yet, okay? And then her husband is gonna have a big A, and then we don't know what the other situation is. But when we look at their kids, we can see their son has the trait. So the son must be small a. And each of these small a must have came from the parents. One from each parent, in fact, right? And that's how we can say for sure. Okay? But for the sister here, we don't know. We cannot say for certain. Okay, we'll have to wait until the sister get married and have kids, and then we can, you know, examine more. All right. So you can practice figuring out the genotype of everybody when you're studying. All right, here's another one. Okay. What is the inheritance pattern? Well, just for the sake of argument, right? Let's say it is recessive. Let's say it is recessive. Okay. What's the genotype for this person then? If it's a recessive trait, what is the genotype of 1, 1? Yeah. So if it's recessive, this person must be little a, right? And the spouse here is also little a, little a. And if that's the case, then actually, if you do the Punnett square, that means 100% F1 will be little a, right? But that's not the case. We see a sun that does not have the tray. So for that reason, this cannot be recessive. Okay? This cannot be recessive. Do you understand? And again, there are only two choices. If it's not recessive, then it would be dominant. Okay? So how does it work if it's dominant? Well, if it's dominant, then these must be heterozygous, and then this person must be small a, small a. We don't know anything about these people though. Okay? They have one big A. So here is the takeaway. If the parents, if the parents both have the trait, and at least one of their kids not have it, then it must be dominant. Right? Sometimes it's inconclusive though. All right. Sometimes it's inconclusive. Like if you see this, right? So this is family of four. Everybody has the trait. Then there's no way to tell whether it's dominant or recessive. Right? If it's recessive, then little a, everybody's little a. But it could be dominant, and they happen to be pure. Right? So in this case, it is inconclusive. More information is needed. All right, I hope you guys are doing fine. Um, just give me a moment. I need to find a file. If you have the study guide though, please take it out. It's coming. Okay, hold on. Okay, so in the study guide, on the third page, there are 3 pedigrees. I want you to try them out. Okay, using what I just taught you, please figure it out. Okay? Figure out the inheritance pattern. I'll give you 4 minutes to try that. Okay, not quite 4 minutes, but I think judging from the response I get, most of you are done. Um, for the first one here, it is going to be recessive, right? Because you see the parents don't have it and one of the kids has it, right? So the kid here must be small a, big A, small a for the parents, and then not sure what the other two siblings are. Right, so there are a couple families here. You can look at this family, which is inconclusive. It could be one way or the other. But if you take a look at this family, the parents have the trait, but the kids don't. So this must be dominant. Okay, parents must be a hybrid, and then the kids would be small a, small a. This one, because one of their kids is small a, so he must be big A, small a. And then these would be big A from the father. And since the mother can only contribute small a, they would all be hybrid. Okay, so you can see a dominant trait is more, um, it's more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's more common compared to a recessive trait. Again, more people in the family is going to have the dominant trait compared to a recessive trait. Okay, and over here, finally, this is also recessive. Okay, because you can see in both families here, the parents don't have it, but the kids, one of the kids and two of the kids here have the condition. Any questions before we move on to more complicated stuff? All right. So next, we are going to try to do dihybrid cross. The question we have been doing so far, we only keep track of one tray, red flower, white flower. That's one character, right? We should say. But in so those are called monohybrid cross. Now we're going to be tracking two characteristics at the same time, and these questions are called dihybrid cross. So back to Mendel's peat plants. Um, he figured out the shape of the seed. Round is dominant over wrinkle. And at the same time, we can keep track of the color of the seed as well. Some are yellow, some are green, and he found out yellow are dominant over green. Right, so in a second, we are gonna look at how uh, the results will be when we cross a pure round yellow with a pure wrinkle green. Right, so we'll come back to that. But first, his second law. Right, it's called the law of independent assortment. Right? So basically, you can read it on your own. But basically, what it says is if we are tracking more than one gene, we're tracking like gene A and gene B, how gene A is sorted into the gametes will not affect how gene B is sorted into the gametes. For example, if you have big B, small b, right, and then we're producing gametes, right, you might get a big A here in this gamete, but just because you get a big A here does not necessarily mean you're gonna get a big B. It's also possible you're gonna get a big A and a small b. Okay, so basically how one gene is passed on to the next generation into the gamete will not affect how another gene is passed on to the next generation. Okay? So that's the law of independent assortment. So let's do some practice first, okay, before we do the dihybrid cross. Okay. Let's say we have big A, small a, and big B, big B. Okay. There are some individual, we're tracking two traits, okay, two different genes, gene A and gene B. Gene A, it's heterozygous, gene B is homozygous. Let's figure out the possible gametes. Okay, what kind of gametes will this person produce? Well, there is a big A, and big A might pair up with the big B. So A, big B, that's one possible gamete. And then big A can pair up with the other big B, but it's the same gamete, so I'm not going to write it again. Small a can pair up with the big B, and then same thing. Small a can pair up with the big B. It's the same gamete, so I don't have to write it twice. Okay? So this person will produce two kinds of gametes. Big A, big B, or small a, big B. Okay, you're not going to get two A's in the same gamete, right? Because of the law of segregation. The alleles are going to separate during meiosis, and you can only get one of the two, right? Unless there is like a non-disjunction, which, as you know, it's a mistake that happens during meiosis. Okay, let's try another one. Let's say we have A, B, B, like this. What are the gametes? Mhm, that's right. So here we can take the small a, combine it with the big B, and then small a combined with the small b. And similarly, small a, big B, same thing, not going to write it again. Small a, small b, same thing, not going to write it again. Okay, let's try one more. So in this case, there are four possibilities. Big A, big B, big A, small b, small a, big B, and small a, small b. Okay. Another question, how many different types of gametes can be produced by someone with genotype What do you guys think? Okay, we have nine. Anyone else? 6. All right. So you don't actually have to list it out, right, to figure out. Over here, two choices, either big A or small a, two choices for B as well, and two choices for C. And I taught you this before. If you have uh, multiple choices for each thing, and you want to figure out how many combinations you can create, what operation do I do here? It's multiplication, right? So 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. All right, so I'll list them out for you to see. Right, so 8 combinations. Basically, you take these ones and then you add a big C or a small c at the end, and you create 8 different combinations. Okay, let's take an early break. We will resume at 1:30. Why don't you take a look at the stuff we've learned so far and see if you have any questions when we come back. See you in a bit. All right, let's keep going. Now that we understand how gametes can have various combinations when we're tracking more than one gene, let's take a look at the dihybrid cross here. So we are tracking two character here. We're tracking the shape of the seed, and then the color of seeds. All right, those are the two things we're keeping track of. And here we have a pure round yellow and a pure wrinkle green. And I am just going to tell you that yellow is dominant over green and round is dominant over wrinkled. Okay. We'll see how this works first, and then I'm going to explain to you how Mendel knew about these rules from his experiment. So they're pure, which means pure round and yellow would be big Y, and then big R, big R. Pure wrinkle green would be little y, and then, oh, actually, sorry, I wrote them in the wrong order. I should write the round first and then yellow, and then wrinkled and green. Okay. So let's write down the gametes. What would the gametes be for this pair? Well, we really don't have much choice, right? It's the big R only and then the big Y. So that's the gamete. Gonna put a bar here to separate them. And then for the wrinkle green, the only gamete will be small r, small y. So our Punnett square will be pretty small, just 1 by 1. Big R, big Y here, and small r, small y here. Remember, these are in the same gamete, so I have to put them together. Okay, it's wrong to do it like this. Okay? I've seen students do it like this way, and it's wrong. Right? You should not have different letters all over the place. Okay, so this is wrong. Don't do it. Okay? Put them together. So if this gamete and this gamete comes together, then it's going to be big R, big Y, small y. So 100% all the F1 offspring will be big R, big R, small r, big Y, small y. And they would all be round and yellow. So similar to what I told you before with the monohybrid, if both parents are hybrid, sorry, let me say that again. If both parents are pure, then the dominant trait will show up in all of the F1 individuals. Okay, so since everybody is round and yellow in the first generation, then we know round and yellow are the dominant trait. I'm just gonna go over here and do the mouse thing again with you. So over here, we have a mouse with gray coat and long tail. And then here we have white and short tail. Gray and long. Here is white and short. Okay, and they are pure. And then all the baby mice ends up looking like this. Okay, 100%. So which ones are the dominant traits? That's right, because they're all white. So white is dominant and long is dominant, right? Which means the parent here must be big W, and then little l, and then over here is little w, big L. And then 100% of F1 will be hybrid. Okay? Sometimes in a question, I will not tell you which one is dominant and which one is recessive. But then I will say two pure individuals were bred, and 100% of the F1 is white and long tail. And based on that description, you have to know white is dominant and long tail is dominant. Okay. All right, let's go back to here for a second. Now, what he did next was take F1 individuals and then cross them. F1 cross F1. Right, so all the plants in F1 are hybrid for R and for Y. Right, so let's cross them and see what happens. First, we have to write down the gametes. So take a moment and do that. Write down all the possible gametes for each parent. So I hope you have these gametes. Right? Big R, big Y, big R, small y, small r, big Y, small r, small y, right? And it's the same for the other parent. So how big is the Punnett square going to be? Well, it will be 4 by 4, which is 16 squares. So here it is. I already prepared 1. Okay. So why don't you copy this down in your notebook and try to fill it in. Okay, maybe use a pencil in case you made a mistake, and then I'll take this up in a few minutes. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to start filling it in as well. You can check your work against mine. If you don't understand why a particular box is the way it is, please let me know and I'll explain further. But it's not too difficult. We are just combining what you see together, and the same letter has to be written together. Okay, please take a moment to check your work, and then I will tell you more. So it's a little bit tricky to write the genotype. So we're just gonna skip directly to writing the phenotype. And if you could help me out here, that would be great. What is the genotype of this first one right here? That's right. Big R means is round, and big Y means is yellow. But that's not the only round and yellow. Please go through all 16 boxes and tell me how many round and yellow you find. Okay. Anyone else? That's right. So here's another one. Basically, you're looking for a genotype that has at least one big R and at least one big Y, right? So all these up here, they are all round and yellow, as are these. Okay, that's also round and yellow. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 of them will be round and yellow. And that's 9 out of 16. 9 out of 16. Which if you have a calculator, you can plug it in. 9 divided by 16, that is 56.25%. Let's do another genotype, phenotype rather. Let's do this one. Okay. This one is round, round because it's big R, and then small y, small y. Oh, I am so sorry. No, it's correct. Just confusing myself here. It's round, and then small y means it is green. Okay, so how many round and green do you see? Yep, if you find 3, that's correct. There is the round and green. There is another round and green. That would be 3 out of 16. 3 out of 16. Which if you key it in is 18.75%. All right, let's do another one. This one, it's going to be wrinkle and yellow. Right, we don't have a lot of choices left. Right, so I'm just going to go ahead and highlight the other wrinkle and yellow. 3 of them will be wrinkle and yellow. 3 out of 16, which is also 18.75%. And lastly, the most rare type is going to be right here. That is wrinkle and green. And that's 1 out of 16. Okay, 6.25, I think. Yep, 6.25%. Okay. Now, if you set this up as a ratio, you will get 9331. Okay, so this is important. You don't want to be doing this chart all the time on the test. Right? So this next part is important. When both parents are hybrid for both genes, then the offspring will produce the 9331 ratio. Okay. What does that mean? 9 out of the 16, okay, and again, you know it's 16 because 9 plus 3 plus 3 plus 1 is 16, okay? So 9 out of 16 would be offspring that possesses the dominant allele for both traits. So yellow and round in this case. Okay, dominant, dominant. Not surprisingly, that would be the most common phenotype. For the 3, it's dominant for one trait, but recessive for the other. Similarly, the other 3 is recessive for one and dominant for the other. Right, you can see round, which is the dominant one, it's combined with the recessive green. And then here, the recessive wrinkle is combined with the dominant yellow. So either combination dominant recessive or recessive dominant, that would be 3 out of the 16. And finally, the 1 is recessive recessive. Okay. So let's do a question. Okay. Let's say it's our mouse again. Okay. So we have the mouse again. Okay, so let's say we have white is dominant over uh, gray, right? And then long is dominant over short. So we have a hybrid individual, a hybrid for both tray, and we're going to cross them together. If 100 mice are produced, okay, from the cross means to breed them, approximately how many will have gray coat and a long tail? Okay, just copy it down first. I will tell you how to do it. Okay. The way to not do it is to make the 16 4x4 Punnett square. Right? I mean, you could do it that way, but it's gonna take too much time. Right? You're gonna run out of time on the test, and you're not gonna be able to finish. Right? So instead, what you should do is you realize, oh, they are both hybrid. That means it's gonna follow the 9-3-3-1 ratio. Okay? 9-3-3-1. You have to memorize this number. Okay. And the question is asking for gray coat and long tail. So it's gray coat dominant or recessive according to the question. It's recessive, right? Because white is dominant, so this is recessive. And long tail, capital L, is dominant over short, so this is dominant. So in other words, the question is asking you to find the number of mice that will be recessive for one trait and dominant for the other. And that's where the 3 comes in. Remember, 9 is dominant, dominant, and then the 3 is recessive, dominant, or dominant, recessive. And then here is the recessive, recessive, right? So we're looking for recessive and dominant, which means it is going to be 3 over 16. Since we are producing 100 mice, then it's 3 over 16 times 100%, and you will get 18.75. Okay, so if you round it, approximately 19 mice out of the 100 will have gray coat and long tail. You can use this ratio, the 9331, as long as the parents are both hybrid for both traits. Okay? Otherwise, you have to do the Punnett square if it's some other situation. Okay, Punnett square is not always going to be, 4 by 4. I can give you another example quickly. Let's say again the mouse situation. Big W, small w, big W, big W, big L, small l, cross, little w, and then big L, small l. Okay, so let's take a look at the gametes. Okay, so this, of course, is white long, and this is gray long. Okay, so what kind of gametes will this mouse produce? Well, there are only two kinds. Big W, big L, big W, small l. Okay, we use a bar to separate them. What kind of gametes will this mouse produce? Okay, you can do this to figure out the gametes, right? And there are only two types. Small w, big L, small w, small l. So in this case, the Punnett square will only be 2 by 2. 2 by 2. Right? So that goes here. This one goes here. The other two goes at the top. And then we can combine them just like we normally would. Big L, small l. So what do we have? Well, here, 3/4 of them, 3 out of 4, will be white and long. That's 3 out of 4, or 75%. And then this one would be white and short tail. Okay. So you can only use the 9331 method if both parents are, once again, hybrid for both traits. Otherwise, you have to set it up like this. Sometimes the table will be 2 by 2, sometimes the table will be 2 by 4. It really depends on the situation. Okay, so I think that's a good place to stop. Next Tuesday, we will do more practice with these dihybrid. We still have to learn about codominance and incomplete dominance, as well as sex length. We probably will be able to, we will definitely finish 8 on Tuesday. I'm just not sure if we will be able to start 9, but just in case we can, please print the notes for number 9 as well. Okay, we're almost done. Just 2 more weeks of lectures, and then it will be the final test. All right, so hang in there. Have a good weekend. I'll see you next week. Bye for now.